Pounds of Hope, Chapter 7. When I got home, my parents were going through school brochures and tapping away on the calculator. If life were like a comic strip, then there would have been a bubble of black smoke above their heads. I said good night and headed to my room, but they stopped me in my tracks. Gregory, come over here, will you? From the sound of his voice, I figured that my father was in no mood for jokes. Sit down. I wondered what they were cooking up for me this time. You know that your mother and I have decided to send you to boarding school. I lowered my eyes. I thought, for once, there's something you agree on. About time. Too bad it has to be such a pathetic subject. I imagine that you're not so happy about the idea, but that's the way it is. We are at a dead end. You do nothing at school. You've been expelled. Nobody wants to take you, and the local school is a disaster. We don't have much choice. But what you probably don't realize is that it's very expensive. We want you to know that we are making a sacrifice for you, a big sacrifice. I laughed ironically inside my head. Oh, but you shouldn't have. Thank you, thank you. You are really too kind. Allow me to kiss your feet. My father continued, don't you want to know where you'll be going? Don't care? No. Well, actually, we have no idea. It's really a problem. Your mother has spent the whole afternoon on the phone with no result. We have to find a school that is prepared to take you halfway through the year, and there's where I want to go, I said, interrupting him. Where's there? There! I held out the leaflet with a picture of the students at the workbench. My mother put on her glasses. Where is it? 30 miles north of Valence? Greatfields Technical High School? But they don't have a junior high. Yes, they do. How do you know? Asked my father. I called. You? Yes, me. When? Just before the holidays. You did? You actually called them? But why? I just did, to find out. So nothing. Why didn't you tell us? Because it's impossible. Why impossible? Because they only accept students with good school records. My record is terrible. It's so terrible that it's not even worth the paper it's written on. My parents said nothing. My father read the Greatfields prospectus and my mother sighed. The next day I went to school as usual, and the next day, and the next day after that. I began to understand the expression, to blow a fuse. It was exactly that. I had blown a fuse. Something in me had gone out, and everything left me cold. I did nothing. I didn't have any ideas. I didn't even want any. I put all my Legos into a box and gave them to my little cousin Gabriel. I watched TV all the time. I gaped at miles of video clips. I lay on my bed for hours on end. I did no building. My hands hung limply by my skinny sides. Sometimes I felt like they were dead. They were just about good enough to press the buttons on the remote or pop open a can of Coke. I was no good. I was turning into an idiot. My mom was right. Soon I'd be eating hay like an animal. I didn't even feel like going to my grandparents. They were nice enough, but they didn't understand. They were too old. Anyway, how could Grandpa Leon really understand my problems? No way, after all, he had always been a genius. He had never had any problems. As for my parents, forget it. They didn't even talk to each other anymore. A couple of total zombies. I thought about doing something, anything, to shake them up once and for all, to get some kind of reaction. Though what that might be, I didn't know. A word, a smile, a gesture, anything, but I didn't. I was zoned out in front of the TV when the phone rang. So, Toto, have you forgotten me? I didn't feel like coming over today. So what? What about Joseph? You promised to help me deliver the sideboard. Oh, Lord, I'd completely forgotten. I'm on my way, sorry. No problem, Toto, no problem. It's not going anywhere. Joseph treated us to a big, fancy meal at his restaurant to thank us. I had a steak tartare the size of Mount Vesuvius, with all the trimmings, capers, onions, herbs, and chili. Delicious. Grandpa Leon looked at me, smiling. It's good to see you eat like that, Toto. Lucky that your old ancestor exploits you now and again so you can eat like a pig. What about you? Aren't you eating? Oh, I'm not that hungry, you know. Your grandmother stuffed me full of breakfast as usual. I knew he was lying. After lunch, we visited the restaurant kitchen. I couldn't believe the size of the pots and pans. They were gigantic. and they were huge ladles, wooden spoons the size of catapults, dozens of razor-sharp knives arranged in rows from biggest to smallest. Joseph shouted out, "Hey, this is Titi, our new recruit. He's a good guy. We'll get to work on him. Give him a chef's hat, and you'll see. In a few years' time, those imbeciles from the Michelin Guide will all be smiling at him. You mark my words. Say hello, Titi." Hello. Titi was peeling millions of pounds of potatoes. He looked pretty happy. His feet had disappeared under a mountain of peelings. When I looked at him, I thought, he must already be 16. Lucky guy. When he dropped me in front of the house, Grandpa Leon insisted, "Okay, so you'll do like we said, won't you?" Yeah. Don't worry about the mistakes or the style or your terrible handwriting. Don't worry about anything. Just tell them how you feel, okay?" Yeah, okay. I started trying to write my application that very night. I must have cared more than I admitted, because I did 11 rough drafts. Even so, my letter was not a long one. I'll show you. To the principal of Great Fields Junior High School. Dear Sir, I would like to go to your school, but I know that it is impossible because my school record is too bad. In your school brochure, I noticed that you have workshops for mechanics and carpentry. You also have computer labs and greenhouses, etc. Personally, I think that grades are not all there is to life. Motivation is just as important. I would like to go to Great Fields because I'm sure I would be happy there. At least I think so. I'm not very big. I weigh 95 pounds of hope. Goodbye, Gregory Dubosc. P.S. This is the first time I have ever begged someone to go to school. I think I must be sick. P.P.S. I am sending you the plans of a banana peeler that I constructed when I was 7. I read it over and found it pretty pathetic, but I couldn't face starting over a 13th time. I imagined the principal's face when he read it. He was bound to think, so who is this wise guy? And then crumpled the letter into a ball and aimed straight for the trash can. I didn't feel like sending it, but I had promised Grandpa Leon and I couldn't get it out of it now. I mailed it on the way home from school. Then when I was having my snack, I reread the brochure and saw that the Dear Sir director was in fact a dear madam. What an imbecile. I thought to myself as I bit my cheek, what a stupid imbecile. 95 pounds of hope? Yeah, right. More like 95 pounds of hopeless. Then it was fall break. I went to Orleans to my mother's sister, my Aunt Fanny. I played on my uncle's computer, never went to bed before midnight, and got up as late as possible, which was whenever my little cousin jumped onto my bed shouting, "Agos, do Agos! Gregory, will you come and do Agos with me?" For 4 days I built with Legos. I made a garage, a village, a boat. Every time I finished something, my cousin was as excited as could be. He would stare at it in admiration, and then wham! He would hurl my creation to the floor with all his might, smashing it into 1,000 pieces. The first time, it really got on my nerves, but when I heard him laugh, I forgot all the time I had wasted. I loved to hear him laugh. It fixed my broken fuse. My mother came to pick me up at the train station. Once we were in the car, she said, "I've got 2 things to tell you, one good and one bad. Which shall I tell you first?" "The good." The principal of Great Fields called. "She's considering you, but first you have to take some kind of test." Ugh, that's what you call good news? A test? What am I supposed to do with a test? Use the paper for confetti? So what's the bad news? Your grandfather's in the hospital. I was sure of it. I knew it. I had felt it in my bones. Is it serious? They don't know. He fainted, and they're keeping him under observation. He's very weak. I want to see him. No, not now.